Hey guys, welcome to the Elvis Diner. I believe this is episode 9. We're just going to wait for some folks to join and then we'll get started. We got a lot to talk about on this diner. Just had a video come out, just got back from a trip a couple weeks ago. So we got a lot to talk about. So we'll wait for some folks to join and we posted everything on our social media. So folks should be joining here soon. Hopefully everyone's having a good night. Thank you guys for joining. We really appreciate it. We already got Bruce Alverson on here. Bruce, good to hear from you.
Hey, Bruce.
Get that going on here. Bruce, hopefully, even though it was only your brother that was on the first video, hopefully you enjoyed it. We got your video coming out tomorrow. Been working on that all day. So hopefully you enjoy that and hopefully everyone else enjoys it. It's got a lot of material in it. It was a really fun video to put together. I mean, the trip itself was really fun. Got Douglas from Dayton. Hey, Douglas, thanks for joining. We really appreciate it. Hopefully you guys have seen our video that came out yesterday. That was the first part of our Huntsville trip. We did the first part as it was the interview with Keith Alverson on the stage in Huntsville. And the second part comes out tomorrow, and that's with George Hill, Keith Alverson, Bruce Alverson, Marcia, and Benny Jack. So we got a lot coming for you tomorrow. Yeah, Keith is such a great guy, especially his brother and wife, Bruce and Marcia. They were really, really nice. We are so lucky that we got to go to Huntsville with them, and they were able to join us for our trip. And we're really excited to put out the video tomorrow. Like I said, I've been working on that all day, and it's going to be a really good video. We hope you guys enjoy it.
Hey, there's Keith on here with us. So we got Keith and we got Bruce.
Nice.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate you guys joining us.
Yeah, thanks for joining, Keith. I know that you said you were trying to get home, rushing home to watch it, so we're glad that you were able to get on and join. So with that being said, if there's anybody watching that has a question for Bruce or Keith, feel free to drop it in and we'll relay it, and hopefully he can comment back and we'll kind of keep that going. If you guys haven't joined before, this is just a hour and a half where we just talk Elvis. We talk about projects that we've had done in the past, anything coming up in the future. So we figured that this would be a good time to have a diner because we just put a video out yesterday and we're putting out one tomorrow. So if you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to drop that in the comment section.
I'll just jump in here real quick and say that this is cool because when we planned this out, it looked like the timing was going to work perfectly for us to release this on the 49th anniversary. We were filming this, May 4th and 5th down in Huntsville. And I started talking to Michael. I said, hey, look, if we plan this out right, we can roll this out on the 49th anniversary. And so the tour and the first show was yesterday, 49 years ago.
Yep.
And then today, 49 years ago, you had the afternoon and the evening show. And again, I've said this so many times before, but anybody that knows us knows that we have been long admirers of Keith and George Hill, Keith Alverson and George Hill, for their photographic work. And that's what led us to do these videos and these interviews. And what a thrill it was to meet them. And the most exciting thing for me with talking to Keith that day was knowing that we were going to release this and we were going to have this diner on the anniversary of that picture. That, to some people, they might go, big deal. It's a show that happened 49 years ago. I sink in a little deeper on that stuff.
Mhm.
I think you and I both anniversaries
Yeah.
really mean a lot to us. I was telling somebody today that you and I have always watched the Aloha,
Mhm.
on the anniversary of that show. We've watched
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh New Year's Eve on the anniversary of that show, and that kind of stuff is just so cool. And when you sit there and look at that picture right there that's behind you, 49 years ago today,
Today. Yep.
and that just, to me, that's cool. And those have become some of my most favorite. As I've told Keith, he's probably getting sick of me telling him this, but I've told him, I said, that picture that's behind you is literally absolutely one of my favorites because if you turn around there and look, you can literally see individual hairs on the guy's head, and that's phenomenal photography work.
Yeah.
So
Keith says Marcia is watching too. We love Marcia.
we do.
She was awesome down there. She had a lot of great stories, and we appreciate her bringing down some, memorable pieces. We don't want to spoil the surprise.
Right.
It'll be in the video tomorrow of what she brought down there. So we really appreciate her bringing all that down, and we had a wonderful time with all of them. So Marcia, welcome to our diner. Yeah, somebody was mentioning they had some recordings of the 30, some audience recordings of the 30th, 31st, and the June 1st show, but they lost them in a house fire. Sorry to hear that. Yeah, before we went down, we do a lot of research, and I actually was able to find recordings for all the shows. And I think the first show, the May 30th show, wasn't the best sounding quality. I think it was an audience recording, and then the other four shows sounded pretty good. So they're out there. You just gotta look for them.
Sorry to hear about your loss in that house fire. Anybody that knows me knows I was a fireman for 30 years, and I saw a lot of devastation over the years with stuff like that. So my heart goes out to you on your loss of your personal items.
Hmm. Somebody's asking, all the shows Elvis performed there, what would you say was the best show? Um, Keith, Marcia, if you guys want to type in there your all's opinion because you guys were there. I mean, doing the research that we've been doing, in my opinion, I think the afternoon show on the
Yeah.
31st was a really good show. I'm pretty sure that was the first time he wore the chief
Mhm.
suit, which is a really, really nice suit. And I don't know, just a lot of good pictures, there was some footage that came out from that show. Bruce was the one that
Mhm.
filmed that, and there's a good audience recording. So, and you'll learn about it tomorrow, but Keith, George Hill, the photographer, and Marcia all had an interaction with Elvis that concert, and none of them knew each other at the time. So,
And take it a step further, George actually, out at the airport,
mhm,
they saw that thing all the way through. Keith talks about watching him come in, to the rear of the building. When we do our videos for each building, we always go around and show the overhead doors.
mhm,
And Keith talks about the excitement that he felt, going around. I can only imagine.
mhm,
Yeah, I can only imagine because, we weren't there, but just so exciting to hear these folks' stories and to sit there in the building. I think that's what was so special to me about this trip. I mean,
mhm,
they've all been special for various reasons, any trip that we've ever taken going into these buildings. But when you sit there with five people, not just one, but five people that all had individual, um, like they all covered something individually.
mhm,
In other words, Keith was taking the pictures, Bruce was taking the 8 millimeter. Everybody had an individual story, and to hear those individual stories was incredible.
mhm,
And what I love, I've seen a lot of videos. I think if you have, as you have, where people will interview people and they try to correct them, and they try to set, if the person that they're interviewing gets a date wrong or gets a location wrong, the interviewer
mhm,
will correct them. And I've never understood that because I'm not there for 100% perfect dates and times, and I'm there for the overall interaction. What did it feel like?
mhm,
I could care less if you get a date one day wrong. I want to hear about the individual reaction
mhm,
as to what it felt like, because what we're trying to do at Elvis back on tour is what we've talked about so many times in the past is we are trying to span that gap between folks that never saw him and the people that did. So we're trying to fill that gap. We're trying to create a bridge there where we can let the people tell us, what was it like? Because like I told Keith when we were talking that day, I said, we depend on you to tell the stories. So if he gets a date or a time wrong, I could care less. I want to hear the story, and he's got a ton of them, and I love hearing them. So
yeah, I want to point out we got quite a few people watching. So for those of you that kind of joined after we started, we got Keith, Marcia, and Bruce Alverson all watching. So if you guys have any questions for them, please feel free to drop it in the comments, and we'll try to get that back to you. And also, if you missed it, we uploaded a video. It was the first part of our Huntsville trip. The first part was our interview with Keith Alverson on the stage in Huntsville. And then tomorrow is going to be, the history of the building, Elvis's performances there, and then interviewing everyone else. So that's going to be really good video.
Keith said, you asked the question earlier, Keith said that show number 2.
Yeah. So that
was his favorite afternoon show.
So
he said
the one behind me.
He did say he did not get a kiss.
Yeah.
I'm glad for that.
And that was another thing that if you watched our first part yesterday, and I think it'll also be in the second part tomorrow, Keith, actually everyone that we're interviewing tomorrow was at the afternoon show. So you got Keith, Marcia, Bruce, George Hill, and Benny Jacks all at the same show. And Keith, Marcia, and George were all in the front row, just seats away from each other. None of them knew each other at the time. And then, like I said in the first part of the video, Marcia was able to go up to the stage and have an interaction with Elvis. And while Keith was taking photos, he ran out of, film in the camera. So while his future wife is talking to Elvis, he's putting the new roll of film in the camera while his future friend, just across the aisle in the front row, George Hill, is taking photos of Marcia with George. So luckily that was all able to happen. And then Bruce was able to get some footage of that interaction as well. But it's just crazy how they were all right there. George and Keith were both taking photos, and then, none of them knew each other. And then Keith and Marcia got married, and then George and all of them became friends.
Yeah, that's amazing. And that's, we don't want to go too deep into that because that's in the video tomorrow. And we're really hoping you guys tune into that. That was a very special, that I just can't say enough about that trip. Logistically, I'll tell you, that was a tough one because I had to work so many things out on that trip and try to get it arranged, timing, of us flying in, they're driving in, getting us in the building, literally, well, I won't say hundreds, but I'd say probably, 25, 30 phone calls, with the venues and things like that, getting that all worked out. And let me give a shout out to, we'll do this in the video tomorrow, but both of the staffs at both of the buildings that we went to, Birmingham and Huntsville, phenomenal people. I know I say that every single time, but literally that's what happens to us every single time. Yeah. I think that I've told Michael this, we got a kind of like a running joke between us where it just seems like spirit wise, Elvis just hangs over us and just literally works everything out. Even when we've gone into a building and we thought something's going to go wrong here, it just seems like there's a little tweak, and then it just works out perfectly. And this trip here was no different.
Yeah, we were getting ready it was like the night before we were getting ready to go to Huntsville. We were already in Huntsville, but it was the night before our tour, and it was calling for rain like all day, like bad rain. And
that was amazing.
And we were like, oh man, we're going to just have to do mostly, inside work and try to get a couple photos. And then we wake up in the morning and it was sunny all day.
Birds chirping, the whole 9 yards.
So that's just one where it, works out for us. But the preparation that went into this, not just on our end, but, Keith and Marcia and Bruce and George and Benny, all of them were able to fit us into their schedule and, meet there. And we had a great time. And, you know, you were over there interviewing Benny Jacks, and then I was on the other side interviewing George. Just after you had done a 45-minute interview with Keith, and then went over and did one with Bruce. I mean, we were all over the place. And then at the same time, while we're doing our interviews, you got Daryl from Channel 19 News, who was doing a story on us, interviewing somebody else. So there was a lot of moving parts, and, you know, it was a lot of prep for us, and they were all, you know, doing a great job. And then the staff was really accommodating. I mean, it was just a great trip. And so we're really eager to put this second video out to kind of show all that work will pay off.
Yeah, I wish so many times. Let me give a shout out to Benny Jacks,
Mhm,
a phenomenal Elvis fan, worked for NASA in
mhm.
Huntsville for what she tell us 45 years, right?
Yeah.
45-year career. Unbelievable. One of the most nicest people that we've ever had the pleasure of meeting. Just it we just worked it out to where we got hooked up with her
Mhm,
through the news station,
mhm,
and a couple calls were made, and then we called back and forth quite a few times, and just a tremendous Elvis fan for one, but
mhm,
just a solid human being, and just a very sweet, very nice, and had
mhm,
so many Elvis stories. Saw Elvis, I can't recall the number of times, but she saw him a lot.
mhm.
So I think she saw him in Louisville, she saw him in Norfolk and
I think she said I
Birmingham.
think the first show she went to is when I was watching the video back was Auburn
Right,
in
right,
'74.
Auburn. And she's got, I interviewed her that day.
Mhm,
And that was really fun. And you're going to hear all that tomorrow in the video. But just what a really sweet, nice person. And
mhm.
just, I can't say enough about her.
Yeah, and I mean, when you were doing your interview with her, you just did a quick overview about the concerts with her, but then really the main reason that you interviewed her was for her to share a story about something that had happened at one of the shows that ended
Mhm.
up in the newspaper that people find, you know, very, very interesting. That you'll get to see in the video tomorrow. It's something that I had never heard happen at another show, but um,
We debunked something because
yeah.
there were people that said, no, that was a made up story. It
Mhm,
never happened and everything. And we interviewed a person that saw it with her own eyes,
mhm,
and the person that it happened to happened to be one of her very good friends.
mhm.
So I don't know how much closer we can get to it than that.
Yeah.
So
I guess a I guess a good hint would be, on the story would be, you know, it's probably not true, but it's probably the reason that you hear Elvis in recordings from other shows say "Don't fall."
yeah,
So that's probably the story that she'll tell is probably the reason why Elvis
right,
started saying that a lot.
right.
So, yeah, check that out. That'll be Benny Jax's story that she shares in the video tomorrow. Um, yeah, I mean, I've been thumbing through all the footage and all the interviews, and everyone just a great story, many stories to tell. So you guys will I hope you guys enjoy it because I've enjoyed working on it and thumbing through all the footage.
Uh, so I've seen this in a lot of the stuff that we've been getting today. I like a lot of the messages and
Mhm,
everything. They keep asking, did Keith take the picture that's on the cover for the Elvis in Concert album? Um, I've always understood that to be a Ed Bonja, if I can remember right. That's to the
that's what
best of my knowledge, that was Ed Bonja.
that's what Carrie's, saying on there. That
Oh,
was
I'm
it.
sorry, it's right there. Yeah. So Carrie cleared that up. Yeah, that's what I've always understood, and I think Keith will back us up on that. That was a Ed Bonja
And
deal.
somebody commented earlier who was a 1970, 1971 photographer. I guess Ed Bonja was one that was there kinda early
Mhm.
on. I'm pretty sure that the photo of Elvis in Mobile in '70 on the plane was Ed Bonja. So, I guess that could be one. Um,
I got a weird. I don't know if you saw this today, but let's clear something up here. Did you see the message that we got today saying that they thought that it was the guy, whoever it was, typed in there, said it was my understanding that Mr. Alverson passed away years ago. Did you see that today?
no.
I can guarantee you we spent a lot of time with Mr. Keith Alverson, and he is
Mhm,
very much alive and very much a happy guy.
mhm.
And no, that so let's debunk that right now.
Yeah,
You may be talking about another Keith Alverson from some other town, but
yeah.
it's not the Keith Alverson we know. So we got that cleared up. He's very much alive and very happy.
Mhm. Yeah, if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop it in the comments. Um, oh, I asked this last diner, so I'll ask it again. Are any of you guys planning on going to Elvis Week? We are. We might be going a day early, adding a day on at the beginning because our for some reason our flights just got changed
Yeah.
to later in the day, so we probably will go a day early. So, but are any of you guys going to Elvis Week this year?
I know Keith will be there, right?
Yeah,
With
yeah.
his
He
books,
he
a
just
book.
sent me the poster for their event at the Travel
Oh,
Lodge.
good.
So we'll post that.
I'll post
Once
it.
we you get through our videos and all that stuff, we'll get back to posting stuff in preparation for Elvis Week and all that stuff.
Right.
So we just got a lot from this trip to post in the next couple days.
If you follow us on Instagram, go back about I don't know, a week or so. That's when I started posting about these videos and kind of doing commercials for them, and basically kind of doing a setup for these, because it really meant a lot. I was talking to Keith down there in Huntsville, and we kind of agreed. He kind of threw it out to me. He said, "Hey, what are the chances of us releasing these on the anniversary of the shows?" And I said, "Well, they're pretty good because we've already talked about it." So that was exciting for us to release these. These are very special videos. First time we've ever done this number of people. Usually we've done, like when we went with Jay Gordon back to Providence, that was a one person deal. Some of the other ones that we've done, when we did Miss Brown, Estelle, from the Sweet Inspirations, that was one person. But this was, and to be honest with you, I'd probably do it right all over again. You say, well, I don't know, that's a lot of work, but if I was faced with it tomorrow, I'd do it all over again, because we got to share some really cool time with 5 just great people, and they couldn't have been nicer.
Yeah.
And that, little things like, well, let me throw this out there, because this is something I really wanted to share with everybody tonight that are tuned in with us. Is this idea came about because Michael and I are big advocates of tipping our hat. We use that phrase all the time. It's like an old baseball phrase, but tipping our hat to people who are responsible for good things that happen in our lives, or that just happen. And I told him a long time ago, I said, I'd really like to get some of these people that were big in Elvis's life, and get them back into the, not just interview them, not just set in a hotel lobby and interview them there, or set in a ballroom at a hotel, but take them back. That's what meant so much to me when we got to take Estelle back to Shreveport, to the Hearst Coliseum. We were sitting in the building where that concert that we're playing on the soundboard, we're sitting there listening to that show. And that, I tell you, that'll send chills up your spine. And then, so you take 5 people like we did in Huntsville, and we're sitting there almost 49 years to the date, and we weren't there. But man, what I get goosebumps now sitting here thinking, I'm sitting here with Keith Alverson, who took some of the most phenomenal photos, him and George Hill, some of the most phenomenal photos that were ever taken of Elvis. I'm sitting here with him. He was at 3 of those shows. He can explain to me what that was like, as opposed to not knowing at all, not being able to hear that story being told. And so that's kind of what led to this whole trip taking place. Is let's take these guys back. Let's just don't interview Keith in a ballroom at a hotel. Let's see if we can figure out a way to get Keith back. And then when we added on Marcia, where she comes and tells her, wait till you see the video tomorrow. That was one of my favorite interviews. Keith, I love your interview. I had fun doing it, but probably one of my favorites was when I got to talk to Marcia about the special little story that she shares in the video. I love that, because it's a very unique story, very different, and it's going to be fun to hear. So I just want to give you guys a bit of background as to how this trip came about, why we did this trip. And it was really to tip our hat to the people. And like I said, if you go back and look at like the last 4 or 5 posts that I did, we were really trying to pay tribute to the people that took these photos, like Bruce that took that 8mm. If Bruce isn't sitting there with that 8mm camera, we're not seeing live moving pictures of Elvis. Yeah, we're going to have the photos of Elvis, but Bruce gave us the moving pictures of Elvis walking out on that stage.
Yep.
Without that, what do we have?
Yeah. Somebody was asking about, okay, let me back up a little bit. All right. Okay. We'll come back to Huntsville in a minute. I'm just going to try to answer some of these questions. Do we have any plans to tour the LA Forum? Yes, we have. Elvis was in 130 cities. We've been to 100 of them. I believe, I'm trying to picture a map in my head. I'm pretty sure it's Denver East. We've been everywhere in between Denver and East. So all we have left is the West Coast. We've been to Vegas, but everywhere west of that we have to go to. So we do have plans to go to LA. Keith was saying Ed Bonja was hired by Colonel Parker. He had access to everywhere around the stage and backstage. I hardly ever got out of my seat. That's why he has so many great photos.
And wasn't it cool when when I was talking to Keith and we were talking about, like when I used to film your brother in baseball games, and we kind of made a connection on that deal where I said, I felt like I never got to see a baseball game because I'm looking through the lens. And he said, I was the same way with me. And that was cool because, again, what we're really trying to do here at Elvis Back on Tour is spotlight people for different things. We spotlighted the bodyguards. We spotlighted, some of the guys that were in the band and, backup singers like Estelle and things like that. But I wanted to expand it and talk about, if you go back and look at the post from about 4 or 5 days ago, I summed it up to the best of my ability to say, Elvis was one of those people that you had to see him. You hearing the music, the voice, that's one thing. But you look at the jumpsuits, you look at his face, the guy was, a nice looking guy. And if you remove that, all you hear is the music, which would have been great, would have been fine. I'm fine with that. But I'm saying and I'm not trying to overstate this. I'm just trying to give credit where credit's due. These guys followed Elvis across the country. It's not like they went down to the corner Civic Center, shot a couple of pictures, and then said they dedicated a good portion of their life and time and money out of their pockets to go to these shows. And like Keith said, I sat there with the camera on the ready, focusing literally as the show was progressing. I'm focusing, and I never thought of that. And man, what a debt that we owe to these guys.
They're big. So Keith is saying, Jay, you need another big print behind you now. Maybe a red phoenix over your right shoulder.
Well, you know my address, and if you just fire one off to me, we'll get it right up.
Yeah. So for those of you that might be new to our page or might not have watched a diner before, so we got this picture that I bought, I think 2 Elvis weeks ago. This is a Keith Alverson post. It's from the today's show, May 31st afternoon show. And this is Keith's photo. And then over here, we got a George Hill photo from Bloomington in June 1974. And then back there, we got a scarf that Elvis wore in St. Paul in 1977. And then over there is another Keith photo from Atlanta, July 3rd, 1973. That's the Cape shot, which if you watch our video from yesterday with Keith, he'll explain the whole story behind that Cape shot. So that's a really cool story.
Right. You're going to love the video tomorrow. Again, because yesterday we talked to Keith in that video. Tomorrow we're going to talk to them all. That's going to be fun. You're going to hear some cool stories from everybody in the group. You're going to hear a little bit more from Keith. You're going to hear a little bit more from his wife Marcia. You're
Mhm.
going to hear from all of them.
Yep.
Bruce that filmed the 8mm. You're going to hear from Benny Jacks. You'll hear from George again.
Yep.
It was just a great time, and it's going to be a fun video. So please tune in and take a look at that thing. When are you releasing it tomorrow?
Probably have it set to go probably at noon Eastern time tomorrow. So that's probably when it'll go up.
Okay.
Maybe a little earlier. Haven't decided yet. Yeah, people are talking good about the Indian feather suit. So I've always liked that suit. I just kind of always liked it. But then last year when we went to Graceland, I actually, really looked at it on display, and it's like if you move a little bit around it, the lights just glimmer off it, wherever you are. And then I was really looking at the colors and everything, and I said that is a very what's
Underrated.
underrated suit. So that's become one of my favorite suits that he wore. Huntsville being the first.
That's a question I want to throw out there to everybody, and everybody can answer this. I want everybody to pitch in on this question. I was thinking about this a couple days ago. And I want to hear from everybody on this, so start typing. Has your list of your top 3 jumpsuits changed over the years? And I'll tell you why that I'm asking this is because anybody that was alive back in the 70s, okay, which you weren't, you looked in a book, probably at one of Keith's photos or George's photos or Ed Bonja's photos, and you were limited in the detail. I remember as a kid, you were limited in the detail. I never knew what any of those, like you look at that picture right there. If you saw that picture back in the 70s in a magazine,
Mhm.
you had no idea what was on that buckle. You had no idea what those jewels looked like close up
Yep.
because you couldn't see them. Because
Mhm.
usually back in the day, back in the 70s, it was more than likely a black and white photo, or if it was color, it was very grainy.
Mhm.
And you kind of look at like I think you took a liking to the jumpsuits that you could see in a video. So like the
Mhm.
Aloha, everybody fell in love, I mean, I fell in love with the Aloha because it was the American,
Mhm.
United States of America. It represented our country. And I said, man, I love that suit. But over the years, that kind of changed, it kind of evolved. And I think to your point, when you go to Graceland and you go in that room and you see those, and you can go up and see that, like on one of those buckles, it's like
Mhm.
a Wells Fargo
Yep.
stagecoach, and you're going, what in the
Yep.
world? Where did that come from? But when you see it, again, to your point, when you see it, you go, like to your point about the Indian suit. I never knew that thing popped like that, but that thing literally looks like it's plugged into the wall, like
Mhm.
it's just flashing and glittering. And I'm going, God, I can't imagine what that looked like under spotlights.
Mhm.
And so my top 3 jumpsuits have changed. I was just curious, do you guys agree with that? Has your likes of the jumpsuits changed over the years? And have they changed since you got to see them for the first time at Graceland? Have they changed? So type in your thoughts on there. We'd love to hear from you guys.
Yeah, that was definitely an instance for me when I saw the Indian chief suit, where you just see the colors and the sparkle on it. When
Mhm.
when you look at it, it's something that next time you go to Graceland and see it, you'll see what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
All right, so I gotta give a shout out. We got Derek Phillips on here.
Hey, Derek.
Derek has been a great help for us on these trips. Honestly, if it wasn't for him, neither of these trips probably would have happened. He's helped us out a great deal, so we really appreciate all the help that you've given us, and I just can't say enough of how appreciative we are of everything you've helped us with.
You know what? I'm gonna give Derek. I'm gonna push this a little bit
Mhm.
more, because we are always. There's one thing about us, and it's the way we are as people. We love to give a shout out to people that have been kind to us and have treated us nicely and been respectful to us. Derek is no exception to that. Derek has, I think what I love most about Derek is he's one, he's a super nice guy. But the next thing is he's so supportive of what we do. He has given us so many nice comments. In fact, he just typed in a couple there. We won't share them with you because they're private, but
Well, yeah, people can see it.
I mean, it's it's nice when people say, hey, love what you do, love the reason that you do what you do. And another thing I want to make clear, we've said this before, everything we do is from the heart, and it's from a passion that we have for Elvis. It's to keep Elvis's legacy burning hot, and it's to share with people who will never get the chance to come here to this country, or if you're in this country and you can't go, you can't afford to go for whatever reason. That's another reason that we do what we do, to try to bring these places to you and bring these people to you. And another reason, the third reason would be, like we've said a million times, the youth, to try to educate the youth about what a great guy this was and what he did for humanity, and what a great human being he was. That's another one of the big reasons that we do what we do. But we have never taken a dime for anything that we've ever done. We're not monetized. We don't get a check from YouTube. We don't get a check, and we never will. We shook hands on that a long time ago. I applaud anybody, that writes a book or does anything like that, and because they've earned that. If you write a book, you've earned the right to sell it. If you like with Keith, if you've taken thousands of photos and you create a beautiful book, well, then that's yours to sell. But what we do is just to basically share, and it's not in any way to gain from it in any way.
So Keith was asking if any of the footage from our Birmingham trip will be released tomorrow. So nothing from Birmingham. For those of you that don't know, before we went to Huntsville at the beginning of the month, our first stop was in Birmingham. So we brought everyone to the Birmingham arena and did all that. But we wanted to put out the Huntsville footage first on the anniversary. So it'll be a couple weeks before Birmingham comes out. We just need to kind of regroup after we put up tomorrow's video and kind of plan the next couple months and see what we're going to do for our content. So nothing from Birmingham tomorrow. It'll just be Huntsville.
Do you think we'll ever show them the surprise that we got from Mobile? Maybe we'll use that as a teaser for the next. It's sitting right there.
Yeah. I don't know if we'll be able to.
Not tonight, right?
Yeah. We still need to do a studio tour. We keep saying that, but we haven't gotten around to. They only see this corner. They haven't seen the other side of it. So we'll need to do it.
Well, maybe one night we'll flip this thing around and we'll do it to where the camera shows that side of the room, because that side of the room's got some cool stuff. We have a ticket collection. So anybody that wants to part with your tickets, feel free. We'll be more than glad to take them off your hands. And we're scarf collectors. We love scarves. So if you've got a couple scarves laying around and that you don't want anymore, feel free. I'll give you the address.
The thing that I like about our collection is, whenever we add something to our collection, whether it's a ticket or a picture or a CD or anything, and for me, it's nice to know that whatever is added in here is staying here. It's always. We will never. We've discussed this. Anything that's 100%. In here will never be sold. This will all be passed down to me, and I will continue to grow this collection. And hopefully I can pass it down to my kids. But everything that, whether it's a scarf, photo, ticket, anything, a photo, will never be sold. It'll always stay in our collection. So that's nice for me to know.
You have kids?
I said when.
When you have kids.
I said hopefully I can pass it down to my kids.
That was a surprise coming. Yeah, let me touch on that for a second. We're just very. That's the way we are. We're. He's like a little junior pack rat. Anything, that, like, if I give him something, it's locked down. He's not, if I have something like from my childhood, I've given him things, or like when I was a fireman, I've given him stuff, and he's like holding on to that. That's the way he is. That's the way I am. And we've received some things as gifts in our collection that I would not part with it. And that's something that really means a lot to me when somebody said, hey, here, I want you to have this because I know you guys, your love for Elvis, and I know you guys will take care of it. You can be guaranteed of that. And we
Mhm.
don't let this stuff go, and we take care of it, and we respect it,
Yeah.
and it'll stay with us forever.
Yeah. Yeah, so people are, we're just now getting to the comments that people have been listing their suits. So people were saying, someone said their favorite was Peacock, Black Conquistador, and the Lucky Suit. So speaking of the Peacock, I actually saw an interview with Angie Marchese that said they've been
Trying to get it
working
back.
on getting that back in their collection. So hopefully we'll get an update on that. Um, yeah, there's somebody, uh, what's the guy on Instagram that does the jumpsuits?
Oh, oh,
I literally can see
why do
his
you
face.
always do this? Where you ask me a question that I don't, I know.
I can
Oh,
see his face. But yes, he posts the close-ups of
I
the
hate when you do
jumpsuits.
that. I hate when you do that.
No, but we can see his face. It's like right into my. I'll think we'll figure it
Yeah,
out like in a couple
please
minutes.
do. So get on your phone and figure it out.
Yeah, a lot of people like the Phoenix. I've always liked the Phoenix. I think my favorite, I like the silver one. He wore that. That was the one that he wore twice in Huntsville because he did the Chief, the Red Phoenix, the Black Phoenix, and the Silver Phoenix. And the they call it the silver one, but it's like that navy blue one. That's the one he wore twice.
See, for me, and probably a lot of people will agree with this. We got a lot of people on here now, so help me out with this. I've had friends ask me, what's your favorite Elvis song? Man, how do you do that? Honestly, I mean, I think it depends on your mood, where you're at, what state. When I was younger, I liked certain songs. As I got older, I liked
Lawrence.
different songs. Lawrence, there you go.
Thanks.
God,
Somebody
Lawrence,
put
we're
it.
sorry about that.
Somebody
man.
put it in the comments, and I was looking right here on the side. I have his sticker on my desk from his account. So
Lawrence, don't feel bad because I sometimes can't remember
we're
my own
terrible
name,
with
but
names.
I will tell you, and this is not in any way trying to make up to Lawrence, but we met him in the hotel in Memphis, about 3-4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Just such a nice guy,
Yeah.
and does, man, if you're into jumpsuits, go to his Jumpsuit Heaven, right?
Yeah.
See, I remembered that. Go to Jumpsuit Heaven on Instagram. Follow that account. He does some phenomenal photography work where he zooms in on certain parts of the jumpsuit,
Mm-hmm.
and it gives you a great idea of what it looked like close up. Again, going back to what I was telling you earlier, back in the 70s when I was a kid, you didn't see that
Mm-hmm.
stuff. You saw, well, I don't have a good example, but you get what I'm saying. You just didn't see the detail. And when you go to Graceland and you can walk that close up to that box and look in there and see that, you're going, so that's what that is.
Yeah.
Those things were, like the gypsy suit, those things were sewed, those little beads were sewn in there. And it's like, I would have had no way of knowing that.
Yeah.
So, and then, like the owl
Mm-hmm.
on the Greensboro,
Mm-hmm.
The owl suit, why an owl? I don't know, but lion, like on that suit, I get it. It's a lion. That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
But an owl, I mean,
Somebody's asking if we will be going to Hawaii to document that building. That is kind of that'd be the crown jewel.
That's where we'll finish it up. When we're all said and done. But we got a ways to go to get there. Still got the West Coast.
Mm-hmm. And we've already said that once we complete the last arena, we're just going to start going back to ones that we, for those that might not know, we've been doing this for years and years and years. And we started sharing this on social media when COVID hit. That was our COVID activity when we were inside. So we decided to start sharing it. And before that, like in 2016, 2017, when we were going to these buildings, we were taking, just a couple pictures and all that stuff. And so, there's not a lot from some of those buildings that we can share because we just took a few photos. But now, doing what we're doing, once we do the last building, we're just going to start going back to these places and doing an actual, overview of the building and going inside and doing all that stuff. So hopefully
it's, some people may think it's not easy getting into these buildings. Some people may think, you just walk up there and open the door. That's not the case. These buildings are locked down pretty tight, hard to get in. Getting in is one thing. And then, Getting a tour is another thing. Logistically, it's tough to work all this stuff out. You got to be doing this at the right time, because Elvis performed at a lot of colleges, on college grounds, like, say, I give you an example, like Notre Dame. Um, they're tough to get into. So logistically, I handle the logistics of what we do. He handles the video work. And every time I sent him a text yesterday, I said, I couldn't be any more proud of your work on this video yesterday with Keith. I mean, that's all him. I will get with him and I'll say, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I want. This is the way I want it to flow. And just make sure we cover all these things. And I walk out of the room. And 2 weeks later, I walk back in and I get this masterpiece where, and I'll brag on him. Yesterday, I'm going, holy cow, man, this is a great video. So I don't even second guess this. I just, there it is. It's what I'm looking for. It's what I want. Try to pull the emotion out of this. We're big on emotion.
Mm-hmm.
When we interview people, we've had people tell us, I don't really like to show emotion. I don't like, no, we're not doing that. I want to see, if something moves you and you're going to shed a tear, shed the tear so we can get it on film, because that's you. That's how you're feeling at
Mm-hmm.
that time. So let it happen.
Yeah.
And then that's what you're going to be remembered for,
Yep. And when we, last Elvis week, when we were down there, that was the first time we had met George Hill, and we took him over to the Mid-South.
Yeah.
And when we were talking, doing an interview with him, he started talking about the day that he learned Elvis, or the day that Elvis died. And just like with Keith, it was the same thing where they both got choked up.
Yeah.
And, showing the emotion there. And it's just amazing how, I never obviously met Elvis, but I can still get emotional thinking of like the day that he died and everything. It's just amazing how some guy can bring all of these people together. And, like Keith said in the first interview, he's part of the family. He's a part of many, many families around the world because of the impact that he had.
I think it's what made me emotional in Huntsville when, we went out for Keith's birthday and we were sitting there in the pizza place, and I look around the room and I said, dude, Elvis, it baffles me because, again, I never met him, but I sit there and I go, how is it that one human being can have that much power and not power? What's the word I'm looking for? Like
Influence.
Yeah. Like like an energy, I guess is what I'm saying, to where it's almost like he just draws this, like pulls this stuff together. And I'm sitting there and I'm going, these people that I'm sitting here with, and some people might go, all right, you're getting corny. I don't feel that I am. I'm sitting there and I'm going, these people that we're sitting here with were at these shows 49 years ago. And they felt it important to come back, travel hundreds of miles to come back here to be part of this. This guy, it ain't like Elvis died last week.
Mm-hmm.
I could see it if, Elvis had just passed away and, hey, we want to go there and, and be together and, have memories and things like that. 49 years.
Mm-hmm.
We all went back to this building and we sat there and we talked and we had dinner and to sit there, hey, I'm going to shut up. I'm going to push my chair back and I'm just going to listen to what these people have to say. That was cool. And then, when we go to the building, man, you talk about getting choked up. Several times. You didn't know this, but several times I'm sitting over there and I'm going, we pulled this off.
Mm-hmm.
We brought these folks back, and just to sit down and just sit back and just watch them interact and watch them look up on the screen and watch the video of Elvis coming out on stage and hear the sounds that they heard 49 years earlier. Man, that was worth its weight in gold to me.
Yeah. And I mentioned that in the video that's coming out tomorrow. My favorite picture that Keith took, and then my favorite overall concert picture of all time, that was taken by George Hill, was at Huntsville. And both of those were up on the big screen in Huntsville in the arena, and we got pictures of them looking at the screen with their picture up on the big screen.
Mhm.
So that was very, very memorable to see. So you'll see that tomorrow.
Pulled down one time. Patty asked a question. Patty from Ireland. Patty, good to see you on there, buddy.
Yeah. So try to catch up on these.
Behind me.
Try to catch up. We're looking at yeah.
That Patty's asking about that picture. He asked if that was Keith or George. That was I don't believe that was either.
I don't know who took that one. I don't know. I don't think there's a name.
I don't believe it was Keith or George at St. Paul, but Keith can jump on there and say I don't believe that photo was either one of them.
So we got some comments that were posted 12 minutes ago, so we'll try to catch up on some of these. Yeah, definitely hats off to Derek for helping. Just a huge help. He's the kind of guy where if I text him, he can definitely help me out. Jumps right on it.
Class act.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the studio tour will be cool. Yeah, that's probably something that we can do, because after this, we'll probably have to, we got Birmingham left and stuff and I'm going to do been working on that last couple of weeks. I'm going to do a video for some tips and, some advice for Elvis Week for people that might need it, or first time Elvis Week goers. So that'll come out in a couple of weeks. So yeah, we can probably do a studio tour. Over the last couple of years, my appreciation for jumpsuits has grown. The amazing display at Graceland is very impressive and causes pause. Yeah, absolutely. I like the fact that you can go in the room and see them all, in one room. I think, and I think I speak for a lot of other folks. I think the one downside, and I'm pretty sure that folks at Graceland have even said this, it's the ones that are up top.
Hate it.
You can't see them. You can't see that. And especially, which I don't understand, is probably the most detailed jumpsuits, the Conquistador Spanish flower suits are up at the top.
Those are some of my favorite suits,
and you can't see and they're the most detailed ones up at the top. So,
and again, that's not a slam, because you can only do so much with so much space. But at the same time, when you're thinking about designing that room, this is just personal opinion. When you're thinking about designing that room, why not have it on something that rotates? In other words, like on a belt or something, but some way to bring, instead of having it 20 feet above you, bring it down and have it something that runs around. Yeah, you'd have to stand there for a little while, but it's better to stand there for a little while than to not be able to see something that's 20 feet above your head.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe the Peacock was sold at auction. I don't know if this was exaggerated when the articles came out about it, but I think I saw somewhere that it sold at auction for like $300,000. I don't know if that was exaggerated, or
no, that's straight. Yeah. I saw that. Yeah.
And I think 2 years ago, one of his Madison Square Garden suits sold at auction. So yeah, a couple of them have gone out there. Yeah, Elvis Jumpsuit Heaven. If you guys like the jumpsuits, go ahead on Instagram, type in Elvis Jumpsuit Heaven, and follow Lawrence there. He's got some great work there. Just trying to jump on some of these comments, catch up a little bit.
Somebody's talking there while you're looking. I'll chime in on Elvis A-Z comments on there. I love seeing the same impact Elvis had on my generation, affecting the newer fans. We were just talking about it. Keith said that picture's not his, so that's okay. Just bear with us, guys, because these things, like, they come in so fast and they roll up, and you may ask a question now and that thing rolls and it's gone. So he has to go back and look, and we'll do our best to get back to that. But what I was saying about the youth, that is something that's always been very important to us, is to be able to, we've kind of taken it like on as a personal role of ours, along with other people that do the same thing. But we're really big on trying to span the gap, bridge the gap, if you will, where, we're losing these folks that worked with Elvis. And so we're trying to get in there and, and talk to as many of these people as we can. And Michael and I call it creating a time capsule. That's what we tried to do for Estelle. That's what we tried to do with Keith. That's what we tried to do with George. That's what we tried to do with all these folks that, Dick Grobe. We're trying to create that time capsule to where we go in there, we photograph them, we take video of them, we interview them, we get the emotion, we try to capture the emotion. That's what I love. He loves doing the video work. I love doing the face-to-face interviews. Like when I interviewed Keith the other day, when I struck that emotional chord with him about when we lost Elvis, that meant the world to me, that he got comfortable enough that he said, I'm just going to share how I felt. Boom, there it was. And that makes me emotional just thinking about it, because it's nice that you can find that chord in somebody, that you strike that chord and they share that emotion, because that's what, like I said before, that's what you're going to be remembered for, is that sharing that true raw emotion about how you felt. Because if you cover it up, like if the real deal is in here and I cover it up and you can't see it, well, then it doesn't exist because you can't see it. Yeah. But if you can break that thing apart and see that raw emotion in there, like we did, when we sat there, I don't remember the question I asked Estelle, but you remember when we were talking to her, and if you go back and look at our video that we did with Estelle Brown, I asked her that question. And remember, she reached up and I'll never forget that as long as I live. She reached up and grabbed her necklace, and she started like just holding it like this. And I thought, we struck a chord there with her, and that's the kind of stuff I love doing. So bridging that gap with the youth. That's what we're trying to do, is capture that emotion so we can take these kids that are coming up now and saying, look at the impact that this guy had on people that made him, 50 years, almost 50 years he's been gone. And I can interview somebody almost 50 years later and a tears running down her face. Beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you guys have any more questions, feel free to drop them on there. We got quite a few people watching. If I'm being honest, I think it's the most we've had, watching at one point. So that's kind of what we're shooting for, is, just a bunch of people to come on there, just make it one big conversation.
Yeah.
Things like that. Somebody, Paula was saying about the Elvis Week tips. Yeah. I don't, people have dropped a couple on their social media before, but I haven't seen any like video where it's just, tips and things like that. So yeah, so far I'm working on a list of, like good places to eat, good places to shop, good Elvis content, and some other tips. I mean, some Elvis places to eat. When I say that, I mean, we got Coletta's, which is a place that Elvis ate at, and that's also a good place to eat at.
Well, and I know Marlowe's, they get the first, line in the story every time, but Coletta's, man, if you've been to Elvis Week and you've always gone to Marlowe's, keep going to Marlowe's, because they're great Elvis people, man, and they're very welcoming, and they treat you like gold there. But run down to Coletta's, because that's where Elvis had the tab. Mr. Coletta sat down with us and we basically interviewed him, 100 years anniversary last year that his family's owned Coletta's Italian restaurant. And we sat down there and talked to him, and he said Elvis came in there, I think he said one time, and sat back in the corner, and he's very honest and very, he did, a lot of times people like to elaborate and go, yeah, Elvis was in here so many times, and you're going, I don't know that, but I probably don't believe that.
Yeah.
Well, when a guy says, yeah, he came in here one time, and then when he elaborates a little further and he says, but Priscilla would come in here and pick up food and take it back to Graceland. They had a running tab there to where they would send the guys down and pick up, boxes and boxes and boxes of food and take it back to Graceland. He said, yeah, we did that many times. We'd get the call. This is what we want. Have it ready. Somebody would come down. Don't know who. Somebody would come down, pick up the food, take it back to Graceland. That's a connection.
Yeah. So. Yeah. We got Taylor on here. He was with us there. We had last year at Coletta's, we had a big kind of meeting with a bunch of people.
Yeah.
We had Sophia, Travis,
yeah,
Mary, Aitor, Taylor, just a bunch of great people. We all met there one evening, and kind of the big story there, like he was saying, is Elvis went there, and if you watch our interview with Mr. Coletta, he'll explain this, but Elvis went there and wanted spaghetti and meatball, or no, he wanted ravioli, and they handmade them, there in the
Right.
restaurant, and they were out of them that
Right.
night, and so he decided to get the barbecue pizza, and that's what he had, and so when we were there, that's what we had, and we also went, time before last August and had it again. And so every time we go to Coletta's, we always get the barbecue pizza.
That
And it's,
barbecue pizza, man, that'll make your tongue slap your brains out. I mean,
yeah, it is
that
really
is
good.
phenomenal.
Yeah. So coming up in the next couple weeks when I release the video for Elvis Week and all that stuff, that'll be one place that I will definitely give a shout out to for some place to eat in Memphis. Definitely think that's a great place.
And here's the thing about when you go down there. Keith said we need to go to Coletta's one night. Yep,
Absolutely.
Let's do that. Let's go ahead and write that in now.
Mm-hmm.
What I was going to say is, when you go as a new fan, if you've never been there, we've been there. I was telling somebody I was telling them on the last live that we did on here that I don't even remember how many times I've been to Memphis. It's been that many times.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I knew that because I just lost track. But anyway, you go to Memphis and you're always going to go as a new fan. You're going to go to Sun Records. You're going to go to all this,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to go to Graceland. You're going to go to this. You're going to go to that. But it's like break out and go to those places that are off the beaten path. Be careful. You know what I'm saying? Be careful. But go to some of those places that they're, and we can share some of those places with you that are off the beaten path, like the Karate Institute,
Mm-hmm.
where there's the footage of Elvis coming in the car in '74, going up the staircase, and then going in and practice, doing his karate deal. And I think they put it to that song, Kung Fu Fighting.
Mm-hmm.
Can't remember who did that song, but that was a great song. And we went there and we actually went up. Remember, we went up and took all those pictures. That's a cool place because for me, and that's another reason we do Elvis Back on Tour is because there's so many people do the Graceland side of it,
Mm-hmm.
where you're going to where Elvis lived. What I love about what we do, we're taking you to where Elvis worked.
Yeah.
There's a big difference there.
Yeah.
Because there are two places that I feel I never met Elvis, I wasn't his best friend. I never spent time in a room alone talking to him, but I can just imagine the two places he was the happiest: home, on the stage,
Mm-hmm.
hands down. So let everybody cover the Graceland side of it. We got the work side of it covered. We're going to take you into the buildings and show you the other place where he was the happiest. That's why I love what we do, because we're showing you the other place that made him very happy.
So we haven't been doing really good with names tonight. So Carrie helped you out in the comment section.
There it is. Carrie, thanks, man. You Googled it. I know you did because I couldn't think of it.
Yeah. And going back to, the places to go around Elvis Week.
Everybody now, there's Savannah saying Kung Fu Fighting. There's Carl Douglas. There's Carrie saying it.
One tip that I'll give for folks, relating to Elvis Week and everything, if you go to Marlowe's pretty much every night of Elvis Week, if you go to Marlowe's for dinner, there's a good chance you'll see somebody, whether it's like somebody on social media that does an Elvis page or somebody in Elvis's, circle.
Yeah.
I mean, we've run into, people that worked alongside him, family members,
Mm-hmm.
you don't know who you'll run into at Marlowe's. So definitely look at trying to do that during Elvis Week.
On that note too, one thing it really makes us feel good, and it really means a lot to us, is we've been to these, we go down to Memphis and people come up to us all the time and, say, hey, you guys are Elvis Back on Tour and, thanks for what you do. And man, that really means a lot. I was
Mm-hmm.
talking to Keith down there in that interview and he said, it means a lot when somebody comes up and just acknowledges him for his work.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I know what that feels like, because that does make you feel good when people, even on here, when people say, hey, thank you and on Instagram, when people say thank you, it's not that you you want the constant pats on the back or the adoration or anything. It's nothing about that, because that's not what we're about. But it is nice when you're setting at Marlowe's and somebody comes over and says, "Hey, I recognize you guys. You're Elvis back on tour," and it just makes you feel good, because it makes you feel like that what you're doing has value to somebody. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and just like he said in the interview when he was mentioning that, he said, "I'm just a fan too."
Right.
And we're fans as well. Somebody was asking if we've interviewed any band members that are still alive, James Burton or Jerry Sheff. We haven't interviewed either of them, but I think 2 Elvis weeks ago we got to sit down and talk
Jerry Sheff.
with Jerry Sheff in a private room. But we didn't video it or audio record it. We just sat there and talked with him for probably about an hour,
Right.
which was a very nice experience. But yeah, we have interviewed Estelle, which, obviously it was great to talk to anybody from the group, but she was one of those ones that never missed a show. It was her, James Burton, and John Wilkinson. Those were the 3 that never missed a show. And then we've interviewed Richard Sturban, who was part of the Stamps from 71 to 72. And
Charlie Hodge. We were talking basically about the Elvis's left side of the stage, our right side of the stage.
Yeah.
Those guys never missed a show. But Estelle said she came very close. Remember that one night? That was a phenomenal story when she told us that story, where she said it wasn't her
toothache.
And she said it was so painful. She said, "There's no way that I'm going to be able to do this." And she said she buckled down and said, "No, Elvis is going to go out there and I'm not missing this." And she went. And it's just little stories like that, man, that just.
Now that you said that, it'd be interesting to know what Elvis would have done if Charlie would have missed a show. Like, would he have had to get his own water? Would he have had to get his own scarves and everything? Well, now that's interesting to think about, what he would have done if Charlie had to miss a show for something. So
it's a good point.
Yeah, but like I was saying, we've interviewed Richard Sturban. He's now part of the Oak Ridge Boys. That was a really cool experience. Gave a unique look as to the backup with the Stamps and everything. From Madison Square Garden, Elvis on tour. So that was really cool interview to do.
What I loved about him is when I asked him, because I really wanted to know this, because I said, what was it like? Was he hard on you? And he said, Elvis demanded perfection, but he never sold you out. Like, he never, in other words, he'd get upset. Remember the one story where he's saying they were in rehearsal, and he said and I don't remember, you have to go back and look at the interview, but he said Elvis got really mad about they weren't getting something right. And he said Elvis had a meltdown, left the room, and he said, I hadn't been with the group long, and he said, "Man, I hear like the room next to us being destroyed." And he said, then he walked back in and goes, "All right, let's go." And but he said, that Elvis wanted to put on wanted to give the fans. I remember him saying that meant so much to him, that he wanted the people with him to be on their game, but what he was saying is, if you fouled up, he'd let you know, but he wouldn't. It's hard to describe how he put it. It's like he wouldn't embarrass you. He wouldn't. That's not a good word, because Estelle said he would embarrass them quite a bit. But what is it that I'm trying?
Case in point,
he wouldn't do it in a way, I guess, that hurt him.
Yeah, case in point, if you go Elvis on tour, Polk Salad Annie, I guess him and JD did something that, they probably did something during Elvis's part, and you hear him go, "Come here, Rich,"
right? Something
like that. So, that's probably an example. But I told him, if you watch that interview, I told him at the end, Polk Salad Annie is my favorite live song that Elvis did. And I said there was 2 people that did the Gators Got Your Granny point, the bass part. And JD has already passed away, obviously. And it was cool to have him redo that line for me. So that was really cool. So if you haven't seen that video, be sure to check that out with Richard Sturban.
Well, that was the part that you're talking about when they were doing the, Gator Got Your Granny. There was a certain way that Elvis wanted that done. And then there was a certain part where he wanted them backed out of it, and they did it again. And that's because we asked him, what was that all about? And he said, that's what that was about. And Elvis kind of like, "Come here, Rich." So that's, you know the backstory to that now. That was they flubbed it up, and you can hear it in the new, the
The
new
box set.
box set that they did. You can hear it very clearly. You listen to it. The first one they get it right, and then there's that flub up, and Elvis wasn't happy. And then when they get it right, when Richard Sturban wound up doing it right, Elvis kind of tipped his hat back to him like, all right, you guys got it that time.
Yeah. So if you haven't seen that interview, watch that interview and then go ahead and watch Pokes Out Annie from Elvis on Tour, and that'll put everything together. Taylor remembers watching our Wichita video. That was a fun trip. They've all been fun, but Wichita, I've always liked being out in the Midwest and like Oklahoma and Texas and all those places. And Wichita was our first venue since starting this in 2020 when we started putting the videos out. Not when we've been touring longer, but it's the first one where they were able to put footage up on the Jumbotron of the concert there. So that was really good. And they were really, really nice, really accommodating there. So we appreciate those folks.
That's what I meant in that post the other day when I said there's so many times that I think of you guys. Seriously, I think of you guys that follow us, and I go, man, I wish these guys that follow us could be in this building right now and see and feel what this feels like. Because you can't bring him back. You're not going to see him again on that stage. But the closest thing you can do is what we did like in Huntsville, where it's up on that screen, or in the case of Wichita, where it's up on the thing, or in probably 10 buildings now where we've actually had the show played on the sound system. That's the next best thing. The greatest thing is seeing the video up there, like in Wichita. You're sitting there seeing the video where just maybe 30 feet below that is the stage where he did that. And that's pretty hair raising there. So
Bruce is saying if Charlie had missed the show, he probably would have had Red or Sonny West do that. And immediately after I read that comment, I'm just picturing Elvis just messing with Red or Sonny so much. I'm just picturing him messing with him so much. So we'll kind of start to wrap this up. Like I said, if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop it in there. And then I say this at the end of all of our lives. If you guys want to reach out to us, feel free to do that on Instagram or Facebook. Our Facebook is EP Back on Tour. About a year ago, we had an issue with our Facebook, so we had to make a new one. So it's EP Back on Tour. And then if you want to email us, it's elvisbackontour@gmail.com. That's a quicker way to get a response. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions or comments or suggestions. We've had some people right after we get off of our diner, they're like, hey, here's a suggestion. So feel free to do that. Mike said he really likes a Providence interview with the guy who took on stage. Yeah, that was really cool.
Gordon.
That was, I believe, on the anniversary of the
exact day
on the 77 show. Which he was at, and he was really excited to do it. So and then his birthday was the next day. So,
and speaking of that, we talk about the buildings all the time in our collection. We've got some cool things that this just popped into my head, but I'm like, we've got something really cool over there that I would love for them to see. It's from Mobile. We try to talk to the staffs of the buildings that we go to, and we try to work with them on, we'd like something historical from here. And our greatest story, we never did a video on that trip out there, right, to Kansas City.
Well, we did
but not about.
No.
So I'll tell you this quick story before we go. This is how we're kind of weird in a certain way when it comes to this Elvis stuff, because we go into Kansas City. We flew in, right, and we did several cities. I think that's when we were out in Lincoln, Nebraska and all that, right?
Yeah.
And when we were in Kansas City at the Kemper Arena, which is a huge building, huge. We were talking to the guy there, and I said, I'd really like to see if you have any of those seats that are still available, because we love getting the seats from the you see people collect the stadium seats from the old baseball parks and stuff like that, Wrigley Field or whatever. When they rip the old seats out, they'll put them up for auction. And so they had replaced a bunch of these seats, but I knew that there were some in that building, and the guy says, well, come up and I'll show you where they are. So we go up there, And he said these were the seats that would have been here when Elvis performed in '77. They were in here, and people sat in them for the show. And I said, well, we'd really like to have one of those.
Mhm.
And so he said, I think I can work that out. Well, he worked it out. Well, the problem was we couldn't get them back in an airplane because these things, it was a rack of what, two or three seats.
Well, they were set up in like a full row. They were all bolted together.
Right.
So they would have had to go in and like,
right. So there was nothing
yeah.
they could do. And these things weighed like 80,000 pounds. I mean, they were crazy heavy. So I was like, well, forget this. We're not going to be able to, hey, thanks for the offer and everything. So we get back and we started talking about these seats, and we're like, that's Elvis history. They could throw those things away tomorrow. We've already got seats from Roanoke. We've got some other stuff from different places.
And we were trying to talk to them about shipping.
Oh, we tried everything, man, to get these seats. And I was like, what are we going to do to get these seats? So what do? We get in a truck and we drove to Kansas City.
It's 15-hour drive one way.
Yeah.
To get there. And so going out there, we did a quick stop in Charleston, West Virginia, did the history for that building there. Yeah. And then we got to the hotel in Kansas City that night. We got there, just got in bed, went to sleep, woke up, and we were at the building, the Kemper Arena, right when it opened. And then they helped us, and
well, let me tell you, let me just take one more minute to tell. I love telling a story. I could talk Elvis all night, but I'll tell you this. You guys will think this is a funny story. It wasn't funny when it happened, but so I had been talking to this guy for about a month about, we'll pay the shipping. Can you box them up? Can you get them out here? If another phone call, it ain't working. So I said, Michael, we're going to Kansas City because I've got to have that Elvis history. So we're trying to let you know we're the real deal, man. We don't mess around. We want Elvis history. We're going to go get it, and we're going to take care of it. So talk to the guy. Oh, Woody. Woody's a good guy. Woody said, you guys are going to come out here. He said, I think you're crazy. But he said, if you're going to come out here, the seats will be here. You guys are going to get here. What was it, like a Saturday, right?
Yeah.
Or something like that. And I said, we're going to come out. We'll get there late, the night before, but the next morning we're going to be there. We'll load up. He said, I'll have them sitting here. They'll be ready to go. So we go out there, we get to Kansas City. We get there first thing in the morning. We're going to load these things up and head straight back. Go up to the door. Guy says, Woody's off today, and I don't know what you're talking about. He said, I don't know anything about any seats anywhere in this building. Don't know anything about unbolted seats. Don't know anything about seats from 1977. I don't know anything about it. And so I asked for his supervisor. So his supervisor came down and she says, how can I help you? And I said, lady, we just drove 15 hours to get some seats that Woody said that we could have. And she said, well, Woody's not here today. And I said, can you please work with us? And it was just going to be one seat, right? That was all we were really. So we went up there and she showed us the seat. I said, I know where they are. So we went up and saw them. And she goes, well, how many of these do you want? And I said, well, how many are you willing to give? And I said, we only made a deal for one. And she said, well, there's like 500 of them here.
And keep in mind, if you watch, it's our Kansas City Part 2 video, because we did the Part 1 with the 74 building, the auditorium, and then Kansas City's Kemper Arena was the Part 2. And you have to watch the video to understand how they renovated, and they just completely just like blew out the inside of that building to change it. And so you have to watch that to understand how they changed that building. But the reason I say that is because we were all the way up at the top of that building. We were the top row was actually, it was the top like 10 rows were blocked off.
That's a big building, man.
They were blocked off, and that's where they had kept the seats that were taken out. So we were all the way up
section 3, like section 330. You had to go on oxygen to get up there.
Yeah, it was way up there.
Yeah.
I mean, and while we were up there, the guy was saying, I don't know if it was when we were there, however many months before, if it was that time, but they're like, you're on the top row, and now you get an idea of how small Elvis would have been down on the stage. I mean,
he was steep, man. Yeah. Remember that steep. Yep. But the funny thing about that whole thing, and I'll wrap this up, but I for whatever reason, I want to share that story with you guys because I love that story. But I remember Michael going, hey, what if they can't work this out. And the lady that comes down here is not, I said, we are taking a seat from this building. I don't know if it's going to be 1, 2, or 3, but we are taking a seat. And the lady was so cool. She said, you guys drove all the way from Virginia. She goes, take that rack of 3 over there. And I think
Well,
we got,
we were up there and she had called the maintenance guy or whatever that was able to take this apart. And he comes up there with his little tool bag and she's like, she's like, I need you to take apart so many seats. And he's like, what? And the look on his face, because like we were saying, it was one row of 20 seats, but they were so intricate when they were put together that it was like washers and bolts and all that stuff were coming apart when you took it off. So felt kind of bad for the guy that had to take them apart, but he really helped us out doing
he was a
that.
nice guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we loaded them up in the truck, and then I think we came back through Louisville.
Yeah, so we did Charleston, West Virginia on the way out, and then Louisville on the way back.
And then we went to Elvis's grandfather's grave in Louisville. I don't know if you guys knew that, but his grandfather is buried in Louisville. That was pretty cool, going there to the cemetery. Took us a while to find that, but we found it.
I don't know. So
let me go back, because Keith had mentioned something right there. I wanted to share this with everybody because Keith was saying that his last shot of Elvis in Indianapolis as they drove out of the Coliseum after the show, the last time I saw him, I believe it was the last photo taken on tour.
I don't know if this will show up, but he just sent it to me. So it's not purple like you see now, but that's
amazing. I didn't know that he just shared that story with us. That's amazing, because think about that. That's the last and I think he even said that when he posted it. He said that's the last time I ever saw him.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Because
when I was talking to Keith in that interview, I said, the day he died, I said, was it like, well, you saw the interview yesterday, but I did say in there, I said it was like losing a family member. And he said, oh yeah. Yeah. Powerful, man. Powerful.
Was there a reason that you brought up this chair story?
No, we can do that another time. Keep them in suspense. But I just wanted you guys to know that we take our Elvis stuff serious, man. So don't put anything past us. We will drive wherever we need to drive to pick up some Elvis memorabilia.
We might have to end up driving to another city in a similar situation here in the future. But it's happened more than once. So, yeah, so we'll start to wrap up here. So if you haven't seen, first part of Huntsville was yesterday. We posted that yesterday with Keith Alverson. It's about a 45-minute interview, really good interview. If you haven't seen it, check that out. And then tomorrow, like I said, between 10 a.m. and noon Eastern time is when I'll set the second part of the video to come out. That's with everybody else in the Huntsville's building history and all that stuff. So keep a lookout for that. And then we'll have a couple more projects leading up to Elvis Week.
You're going to love this video tomorrow because, again, I'll say it one more time. It just captures the essence of it captures the essence of what they experienced when they were there. But more importantly, it captures the essence of a couple things, of how Elvis brought these, what Elvis did to an entire world of people, the impact that he had on people. And it'll show in this video, because when the people are telling the stories, and I'm not going to tell any of the stories now because it'll ruin the video, but just watch the video tomorrow and listen to the stories. And I'm sitting here, and it was like, I was watching Michael, tell that story a minute ago. I'm sitting here watching these, you guys are communicating between each other. And I said, we nailed it. I said, this is truly what you guys did on here tonight. There's a lot of people on here. What you guys did on here tonight warms my heart. And I'll tell you why. Because when we came up with the idea, Michael said, I'd like to start doing podcasts where we just get on there and talk. And I said, I want it to be created like a diner. I want it to be where people like imaginary come in like with a cup of coffee, and we're all sitting in this big room and we're just all shooting the breeze talking about Elvis. And I'm sitting here looking, and you guys are talking look at that. They're talking amongst each other. And it all finally came together. It's like a diner, man. They're on there, they're saying, hey, one guy said to Bruce, hey, great work on your, shooting that video.
Mhm.
That's, man, that's what we were shooting for.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, I mean, in the past we've had, 10, 15 people join, but we've had, I think the top number I've seen of watchers is 45. Now, it's not a large number, but I mean, for us, that's what we were shooting for, is just people to come together and, have
Right.
just talk Elvis and everything. So we try to do this about once a month. It's just something aside from our videos and Instagram where we can just come on here and kind of talk to you guys, keep you updated on projects and everything. So yeah, we're not finally, but we were excited that we got to hit that mark where, we had a bunch of people join, and just what we were shooting for with people talking.
And please keep us up on Instagram, and we're going to go back to, after these videos go out and we're done with that, we're going to go back to some more normal. I got some ideas for some, I think I did some, a series on, like songs that people really hadn't heard that went over really well. You guys responded well on that. And I got some ideas for some, new series that I want to get started on, and that'll probably run us up to the Birmingham video. And then after Birmingham, we'll head to Memphis. We'll have a bunch of stuff that we do from down there that we'll share with you guys. We got another little couple trips planned for the summer that we haven't put them together. Haven't really talked about them yet, but we've touched on them. So there's a couple cities that we're going to kind of nail down and say, hey, is this where we really want to go? And we'll try to shoot out maybe in July and do those.
Yeah. Just scrolling back up. Elvis AZ was saying a friend of his has a seat from Atlanta. If your friend wants to get rid of that seat, you can reach out to us. We have spot in our studio for that, so you can reach out to us for that if he wants to get rid of it.
Scarves, I mean, anything like that.
Yeah,
feel free.
And like we were saying
earlier, see
him
every time you come on here.
And like we were saying earlier, whatever we add to our collection, a book, a CD, a ticket, a DVD, whatever, will stay in our collection forever. We'll never sell anything from our collection.
Well, it's like Keith's books. We've got both volumes. That you'll have those when you're 80 years old, because we cherish this stuff. And especially the stuff that people gifts to us, that where they've signed, like we've got the pictures over there from Keith and George that are signed, that those are priceless.
Yeah. Do you guys have an autograph of Elvis? We do not. That'll be, another milestone to add something to our collection. So some things to look forward to, like we were saying. So we got the video coming out tomorrow. Like Keith was actually just commented on there. Once this video comes out tomorrow, next diner we'll do a recap on it, and probably Birmingham will be out by that point. I can't confirm that, but that'll be something to look forward to. And then we got like a Birmingham video coming out at some point, and then Elvis Week tips coming out. And at some point we have to do a studio tour, because we keep saying that, but we just haven't gotten around to it. So we will definitely do a studio tour in the future, because now we're at the point where, there's not a lot going on until Elvis Week, because, you got Elvis Week, and then right after Elvis Week, it's not that long until his birthday.
Right.
But now we're at that point, that time of year where there's not a lot going on. So we'll try to keep Elvis out there. Putting some videos and stuff like that out there.
Well, the next podcast, I definitely want to share the story about that item that we have from Mobile. There's a story behind that. Another cool story, a lot like the Kansas City story, but not as involved.
Yeah. Yeah. So, again, keep an eye out. About 10 a.m. to noon tomorrow is when I'll set the video part 2 to come out. Let us know what you think in the comments. And if you have any questions or comments after tonight, you can reach out to us on Instagram, Elvis Back on Tour. Facebook is EP Back on Tour. And then if you want to email us, it's elvisbackontour@gmail.com. So thank you guys so much for joining. We really appreciate all the comments and the conversation that was had tonight. We look forward to doing this again in about a month, and hopefully you guys can join. We'll let you know when that's going up. So we really appreciate it, and we'll see you again next time.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.